Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Amanda here. Amanda, you've been somebody creating a really interesting online presence for quite some time, but now you've built it into Swell Entertainment, and you're covering a lot of the latest topics in social media and just entertainment in general with your own interesting takes. And I think a lot of people have gravitated towards the personality you have and this big sister type vibe that you give off. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's funny. For the big sister thing, I always joke that because I feel like there's a very specific like view in the mind of like this like really caring older sister that people have. And I say I'm more of the type where it's like, "Oh, mom and dad won't tell you this, so I'm going to be the one to do it."
Very different type of older sister.
Yes.
So, early on, Amanda, how did your interest in content creation and like building your own online presence and this specific niche in general, like how did this start to develop?
Well, I actually started my channel when I was 16, and I had been a fan of YouTube, a student of YouTube, if you will, for years before I ever even made my channel. And I fully started it for less than noble reasons. I started it because, like all 16-year-olds, I wanted to be a famous movie star. And I saw all these YouTubers getting cast in projects. And so that's why I started my channel. My first video is still up. It's very awkward, very cringy. I don't sound like myself at all. I'm like putting on like a YouTube voice, and I started doing like horror movie reviews and things like that. And I was going to do short films. And then, over time, I took a gap during high school and starting college and starting a job, and then realized, I really wanted to create again. But also, I'd still been a student of the internet, really. I'd still been a viewer of YouTube. And I saw all of these influencers selling products to their young audiences that I knew they weren't using. And so that's kind of where I became like big sister mode and was like, someone actually needs to come on and try out these products legitimately and talk about the experience with them, because I just felt like people weren't being honest. And that's kind of how my I Tried It So You Don't Have to series started. And it's just grown over the years to reviews of products, media, and events just across the board, running the gambit.
So initially it was like, hey, I got to look out for other people and just I'm going to
Mhm.
test out a lot of what people are saying in the space and give you real unfiltered advice.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the first one that I did that was like the huge one back in 2018 time was flat tummy tea. And I drank it for 2 weeks, and it basically is just a laxative tea that people were selling to young teenagers. And I was like, what are we doing?
But you actually took it for 2 weeks and it didn't affect you at all, huh?
Yeah. It affected me, just not in the weight loss category.
So you mentioned you started when you were pretty young and you've been building it up for some time. Like what's kept you motivated, Amanda, to keep going to the point that you're at now where you've got, really great audience?
I think that what got me through the years of no views, and just because for years before I went on a little gap, I was getting maybe 44, 100 views a video. And then I came back and I started maxing out at like 800 views. Maybe I would get 100K views here and there, but I wasn't doing well until 2020 when I had a video go viral and that launched everything. But I think what really, fed me was that I really do love creating content. I really do love making videos and talking and, looking deeper at topics and looking deeper at products and things like that and doing little pseudo investigations, I guess you could say. And so I think that's the main driving force for anyone who is, persevered through low views and low engagement, is just actually having a love for it. Because I feel like so many people now just are like, oh, if I'm not famous in 2 weeks, I'm not going to do it anymore.
So just can you just talk a bit about like that viral video? Like why do you think it went viral and how did you handle that type of scale that it gave you after?
I really do think that it was just kind of a perfect storm, because it was a video that on its surface was not much different than anything else I'd been creating at that time. I had been working on it for close to 5 months because I had to go to live tapings of a late night show in LA while I was living in Orange County. And so I would go to my barista job starting at 5 a.m., get off at 1 p.m., drive to LA, go to a late night taping, and then drive home. And I did that several times because I was just waiting for an episode to air so I wouldn't be fined $50,000 for violating an NDA. And finally, in February of 2020 is when that episode aired. And I just kind of reviewed my whole experience of that late night show. And I when it first went out, it actually didn't perform well. It underperformed for my channel at the time. It got 400 views when my average was 800. And I was like, okay, I guess it's a bummer. Been working on this video for months, but on to the next one, and just started working on the next video. And then the host of that show went on a all-star roast, did not perform that well, but they'd been advertising the show a lot. So people started Googling and YouTubing, searching the show's name. And it just kind of was a perfect storm because my video was just already there. And it was so many people that I talked about the show were just watching it on YouTube or watching the broadcast, and we're reviewing what everyone else was seeing. But I had actually gone and been like, let's see how good of a shot I can give this show. Let me go and be an audience member and experience what this is like when the show's not taping, what doesn't make it to air. Let's see. And I think that was just kind of the perfect storm of it all, of like, here is a different way of looking at the topic. Here is a trending topic. Here is a topic that is based in social media, because this was a social media YouTuber that, got a late night show. And then just the perfect storm of the luck of people, Googling it when they did. I really think it was a perfect show, a perfect storm of everything. And it just kind of took off. But what really, I think, also really helped with launching the channel at the same time is that was the first year I had really started committing to weekly videos. And I told myself every single Tuesday, I'm going to post a video every single Tuesday for 2020. And I've been consistent with that since 2020. I haven't missed a Tuesday upload since. And I think
Wow.
once I started doing consistent uploads, that also really showed people, oh, she's not going to disappear like last time. Like when I would have other videos that performed well, she's going to keep giving us content. This is great. Because it's interesting. I find that a lot of people, especially back then, would say, oh, well, she has less than 10,000 subscribers. Why would I get invested in her? She's going to give up at some point. Like I would still like, oh, okay, like you're posting regularly, so I guess I'll subscribe, And it's interesting the standards that people used to hold their creators to back then. It's funny.
So how did you deal with like the influx of people that were then looking at you? Like how did you handle that from a content creation standpoint and just keep to your brand and your authenticity that people like?
I didn't handle it well. I was actually in San Francisco filming another video. I was at a UFO convention in San Francisco at the time. And all of a sudden I woke up one day in my hotel room and I called my dad. I was like, Dad, I got 10,000 subscribers in 1 hour. I don't know what to do. So what do I do? Because I'd had 6,000 subscribers for almost 2 years at that point. Like I had been stuck. And then suddenly in the span of a weekend, I think I got to 80,000 by the time I got home from that trip. Like it just steamrolled forward. And I remember I got home and I was out to lunch with my friend, and I just had a panic attack into my sweet potato fries because I realized like 500,000 people had seen my face. Like, and it's so funny because I feel like that's something that a lot of creators don't talk about. Like the wanting something so bad, thinking I just need that viral moment. I just need to pop off. And then that's really, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be able to handle it. I've been doing this for so long. And I don't think you're ever really prepared for that sudden jolt of getting what you want. And, just realizing, oh, that's a lot of people that have now perceived me. So it was a lot of that. But then I remember there was a comment that I'll never forget. I still bring this up to this day. One of the comments, because I had been posting, hey guys, I'm at a UFO convention. Glad you like the video, and someone commented and said, the UFO convention video better be amazing because we're all watching. And I had to take a minute. Like I had to put my phone down. I had to step away from the computer. I had to go talk to some alien people and not have my camera with me. I needed a minute because it was such a jarring experience. Because also, if you look at the time, this was February of 2020. By the time I got home, a week later, San Francisco declared a state of emergency. That was an event review. If I was like, okay, to continue to be popular, I need to only do live audience reviews, I would be doomed because they immediately got rid of live audiences. And a lot events shut down. So thankfully I had done what everyone told me not to do. And I had been making a variety of content. I had been doing commentary. I had been doing product reviews. I'd been doing media and show reviews. I'd been doing event reviews in person. And so that I think really also helped with, the long-term success and surviving lockdown for me with that boom of attention, because I feel like so many creators boomed in that time, was having a diversified portfolio of content that I could draw on, and knowing like, okay, I'm just going to do what I had planned. Like I had movie reviews that I had planned, I had product reviews that I had planned, I had commentary videos that I had planned, and I just kept going ahead and just sticking to my plan, because I was never going to be able to match the success of that one video. And I don't think that would have been worth it to try.
It's interesting that like the entire like live events area, like after you had this huge shit, just shut down. So you had to really
Yeah,
figure out
I
what you're
got one
doing.
more. I got the UFO convention video in there, and that was it. Everything was locked down.
That's crazy. So,
Mm-hmm.
social media today, there's a lot of people, Amanda, that talk about the negative aspects of it. There's also a lot of positive aspects that, don't get as much light on them. How do you balance it out being somebody who's a creator, making sure that you can create on social media, but also preserve your mental health?
Honestly, therapy is amazing. My therapist gets paid a lot of money. But also I find that, you can't see him, but I have a little dog. I have a schnauzer who's probably shuffling around right now. Taking frequent breaks, especially working from home and being on the computer so much as a YouTuber and streamer and just content creator across the board. Taking frequent breaks and going on walks with him is such a great little, it's like tea time. It's a little break to go and just get some fresh air and walk around, get my body moving. That's amazing. Spending time with friends. I have a handful of friends that are nearby me that I joke are my brain off friends, because it's just so easy to be around them. I can go and do something that is, as it sounds ridiculous, but mentally taxing, is doing a stream for 5 hours and talking for 5 hours, and just be able to be like, hey, can we just go get ice cream or something? And we just go, and I don't have to be worrying about like that I'm going to say something wrong, or that I'm going to like jumble my words, because I've just been on for 5 hours straight. And that's really, that's really refreshing and nice, and like a nice wind down, a cool down workout, if you will, from talking for 5 hours. And then also just, knowing when to put the phone down, I really think is important. I think that's a skill that every creator needs, when if you're looking for something in the comment sections and you're just scrolling, eventually you're going to find something that's going to, shake you to your core, because people on the internet can be mean. And, I just find that, learning when to log off, even though I joke, I never log off, and that's how I'm able to make the content I do. But knowing when to put the phone down, I think is such an important skill for the mental health of a creator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like you've got a couple techniques that are in place to really help you out.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of trends, Amanda, today, that happen pretty quickly sometimes. As a creator, you want to be likely on top of the trends, even sometimes predict them. How do you stay ahead of trends that are happening?
Never logging off. I think that's the thing that really I feel bad when people email me and they're like, I want to make videos like you. How do you research? Like, how do you do this? And I have to tell them I never log off, and I never have, which sounds counterintuitive to what I just said. But I've been a student of content, a student of YouTube for years. I have the fortune of being one of the last generations, I think, that grew up alongside the development of social media. Like, I didn't grow up having it, but I grew up as it was becoming what we know now. And obviously it's steamrolled, but knowing like this is an online space, this is a real life space, and being able to distinguish that, I think, is very important. But also just even as a creator, I unfortunately meet a lot of creators that say, oh, I don't even watch content anymore. I'm never on TikTok. I'm a TikToker, but I'm never on TikTok. I'm a YouTuber, but I don't watch other YouTubers. And I'm like, why though? Like, I get not watching things in your own niche. Like, I get that. Like, there are some creators, commentary creators, that I love and adore. I can't watch their videos because I know the likelihood of us overlapping is very high. But I mean, I think there's so much that, like, I as a commentary person can learn from someone in the beauty space, or, someone that's a sports creator, even though I've kind of dabbled into sports and things like that now. I just think that spending time on these platforms and is really what helps with being on top of the trends. And it's funny. I joke that TikTok really does know who I am now as a user, because it's now gone to the point where I don't get the original video that causes the trend or starts the drama or anything like that. I get the responses. So it feeds me all the responses and everyone reacting to it first, and then I get to go and find the initial video. So it's like I already have trained my For You page to tell me when something is trending or when something's about to be a problem, before, because I've just spent so much time on the platform before it like even becomes like the mainstream thing and everyone else jumps on it. But also, as far as research goes, so much of what I can draw on now for a video, like I can draw on something that I watched when I was in middle school. Like my memory is vast and weird. Like it makes no sense. I have no other job possibilities other than content creator, honestly, because my knowledge is weird. But it like I can draw on, drama from 2014 that happened on YouTube, because so much of this is cyclical, even though no one likes to think that it is. And so much of that is just, being a student of content, really.
That's fascinating. I mean, a lot of it, I think, is just your personality too that people gravitate towards. So regardless of being on top of trends or not, like they like your takes on subjects. So that's something that's unique, anyhow.
Thank you. I really do try, because like anyone, like any other person, especially as just a regular individual who's, a woman and things like that, like I have my own biases when it comes to, the topics that I cover. And I try and do the best job that I can of, here is my bias, here's all the other sides, but like this is how I feel, like right up in there at the same time. And trying to at least say, yes, I have these issues, but this is what everyone else is saying. Trying to give a good, wide examples of like how people are feeling about various things.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So you mentioned, like, Amanda, this is the only avenue you think your career could really be in. Like, today with content creation, we see like content creators launching their own brands, in a couple different categories. There's also the paid sponsorships. Like, how have you been able to like build this up as a career financially for you? And like, what are some future aspirations that you have? I think screenplays is one, novels. Can you just share, talk about that a bit too?
Yeah, as far as brand deals go, I always try and say, I love getting brand deals that are, like a handful of brand deals across the channel versus every month there's something different, or every week there's something different, and trying not to feel like I'm just constantly selling random things to my audience. I'd rather find brands that I love and adore and regularly show like these are partners of the channel, like these are consistent supporters of the channel. I really enjoy that. Merch, I've recently shut down my Patreon, but I've just gotten jump started into channel memberships, and I've had a podcast. I stream on Twitch. I'm on TikTok. I think just diversifying your platforms, because at the end of the day, as a creator, like the only thing you really own is the content itself. You don't own where you're posting it. You don't own, like, Swell Entertainment is my channel on YouTube, but at any moment YouTube can kind of turn that off or yoink that or ban it for whatever reason. And so that's why I always tell creators, especially new creators that are like, oh, this hobby that I've started just became financially viable. What do I do? Diversify your platforms, have spaces that you own, have a website, things like that, and really grow. As far as expanding past Swell Entertainment, I've always been a writer. I love writing. And so I've also, like I said, wanted to be a movie star. I still do. I love acting. And yeah, I love talking. I love hosting. I love commentary. I feel like there's a lot of parallel avenues that I can move into with the support of what I've been able to build with Swell Entertainment. And that's really what I'm exploring now. I'm exploring, more acting and voice acting and, commentary and hosting, and trying to do more on camera work that is not, edited by myself, and doing more live events and things like that from the hosting perspective and not just the attendee perspective.
So it's really about like diversifying the amount of content you create, and then there's more revenue streams that can come from that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, makes sense. I mean, it's just a broad strategy. You want to be in a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, every creator, another creator, actually, Roberta Blake, said something that has always stuck with me. And it's, creators are independent media companies. And at the end of the day, we're all self-employed. We're our own editors, our own writers, our own cinematographers, directors, etc. Our talent, everything. We do it all, and to do it all, unfortunately, is a lot of work. But it also sometimes takes a lot of money. And there's various ways to do it in more affordable ways, but also to make it long-term successful and viable. Like, you can't just be a TikToker anymore. The money's just not there. You can't risk just being a YouTuber anymore or just doing Twitch, especially when when you're in a category of content that is dependent on audience support. You're kind of dependent on the finances of your audience, and I never think that's a safe place to be in either.
It's an ever evolving space. There's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have an incredible following. It's something you built up, you mentioned, for years, and you went for a couple of years without even growing your following that much. If you could break down like a couple key aspects that you think have enabled you to consistently grow. I know you mentioned the videos once a week. What would some of those other ones be?
Honestly, I think just consistency. I know like that falls under video once a week and things like that, but just kind of acknowledging like there are different pockets of my audience, I would say. There are the audience that will watch every single video I put out. It doesn't matter. A common comment that I get is, I don't know what Amanda's talking about, but I'm going to listen to her talk about it. And that's probably the core of my audience, I would say. But then there's also audiences that are like, okay, when's the next movie review? Like, that's all I care about hearing you talk about. Or, I only watch your event reviews or your commentary. Sometimes there's even mini series that I do where my audience is still asking for, like, what's not a cult but feels like a cult, talking about, products and, like groups that just like blow up out of nowhere. And everyone's like, this feels weird. And so I feel like just kind of really knowing your audience, but also at the same time, as far as growing your audience, I've always been very clear with my audience that, they only really see 10 to 20% of my personality. Like, they don't know me. And also, I think just being, it sounds weird because I just said that, but not having a persona online, like when I do live streaming, when I first started doing live streaming, especially on YouTube before I moved on to Twitch streaming, I would get comments where it's like, wait, she's just like how she is in her videos. And I was like, yeah, this is me. It's edited. I'm probably funnier in videos because I pick my best jokes. But if anything, I really am just kind of like, here is myself, and in a more direct, structured way more than anything. And so when I do live streaming, it's very apparent, I think, to my audience, like, that I'm not selling them a character. I'm really just, here is me edited. Like, that's really it. I think that's really helped with growing an audience. But also, I just think with YouTube, especially with long form creation as well, if you watch 2 to 3 videos of mine, you have a really good understanding of my personality. You have a really good understanding of how I talk about topics, even some of my sense of humor, things like that. And I think that's why, having a lot of content available already. Like, I think over 500 videos now on my channel, which is too many. That's a lot. I talk a lot. But I feel like if you watch 2 to 3 of my videos, you have such a good understanding of my personality that by then if you want to subscribe or not. So, but whereas with shorts, or TikToks even, I feel like you may follow because you think I'm pretty, or maybe I made a funny joke, or I'm doing something cool. And so you follow really quickly. But I don't think you follow because you like me. You follow because there was something that held you there. Whereas with YouTube, it's like it's some capacity connected to me as your host of Swell Entertainment versus just what I'm talking about. And I think that's why diversifying my content, not having niche, having myself just be my niche. The only consistency across my channel, really, aside from a handful of the topics that I cover, the only thing that's consistent for every single video is I am the one telling you my story, whether it's a story of a product, a story of, a movie I watched, a story of an event, anything, a story of a TikTok trend. The only consistency is me. And I think that's where the audience has connected to me and continued to grow the following and everything.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. I mean, that's also your biggest asset too in the whole situation. Yeah. So just the last question I have, Amanda. If you had to pick a couple goals, short-term goals, long-term goals that in this big picture vision that you have now for the next phase of your career, what would those be?
I want to finish my books. I have so many that I want to work on that I finish. I have a first draft of something that I wrote in 2021, a horror novel that I want to finish. I have various nonfiction books that I want to write. I have an idea for a book called I Probably Shouldn't Be Here that's doing a little bit of a deep dive into all the different crazy events I've been to and the experience of being a interloper in a lot of these spaces. I want to act. I want to write. I just there's I want to host. It sounds ridiculous to just kind of keep being like, oh, here's all these big ideas, but the problem with the content that I make, especially with all the traveling that I do, is that it's really limited a lot of what I can do living in LA, basically, because I so much of my job now takes a lot of time and takes a lot of traveling and then is really draining. And so trying to bring everything back to center so that I can pursue a lot more of my creative aspects and goals and things like that, I think is where I really want to put focus on going forward.
Well, I'm excited to see where you'll go next. I think that you've already created a really unique platform that people love the commentary you provide on subjects and the depth of research you have. And I'm sure you'll bring that out in the novels and other things you're working on. So thanks for coming on and wishing you much success.
Thank you so much for having me.